ha, ha, ha. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday night. It seems like I've had a week off, but it was not a week off. It was a week on. We were baseballing on y'all all the way down in Orange Beach, Alabama, but it's good. It's so good to be back. Nightcap Knowledge Tuesday night. Y'all know what time at TI is. We've got, if I said an all-star cast, it would be an understatement. Tonya Boyd Cannon has been hard at work, making sure that we've got things lined up for mental health awareness season, not month, season. Y'all know what it is. We are working to push the people forward, put something on your head before you go to bed. We're in the community, we're in the streets, we're on the yard, we are everywhere. And we definitely got to give a shout out to a lot of the people that are supporting what we do and how we do it. So we got to give a shout out to Mississippi's first hemp CBD therapeutic relaxation lounge. It is Hemp World South in South Jackson, 4270 Robinson Road, Jackson, Mississippi. You can check them out. They got the link tree right there. Linktree.ee/Hemp World. You got it. Linktree/Hemp World. And you know this lady right here. That's Tonya Boyd Cannon Soror. The infamous, often imitated, never duplicated Cheryl Underwood. And she got some friends that are coming with her to Jackson, Mississippi. June 30th, July 1st, July 2nd. They will be live at Johnny T's Bistro and Blues. You can scan that QR code, or you can hit up Johnny T's on the myimpacttickets.com link. You can get you some seats for those 3 shows. Show starts at 7:30. Also performing Mike Washington and Kyle Irby in Jackson, Mississippi. Cheryl Underwood and friends. That's that 4th of July weekend. Also coming up in August, we've got R&B Ribs and Rose, the barbecue competition in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's August 12th. You can save the date for that, and we got more details coming very, very soon. And last but certainly not least, we got Chapter 4 by Chef Doug Chase in New Orleans, Louisiana. When you're in the NOLA, you got to check out Chapter 4 by Chef Doug Chase. One of our favorite spots, a favorite family, and some of our favorite food. You can definitely get everything that you need there, drinks, food, vibes, all of it. Check them out everywhere, social media. It is 9:01. You know what time at TI is. The time to get the show started, ladies and gentlemen. It is Nightcap Knowledge.
I can't with y'all.
Hey, y'all miss me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, not really. Y'all ain't miss me.
We miss you like a hole in the bottom of my shoe.
Damn.
Where I get that
Damn.
from? Where I get that from? Where I get that from? Django. Remember Django?
I
Oh,
Yeah.
did you
remember.
miss? Oh, yes, we miss you. We miss you.
Wow.
I don't. I don't know how to
Hey,
feel.
hey, I got a guest in here. So if you hear somebody just randomly blurt out some shit,
Okay.
it is none other than Tanya's frat brother, Barbecue Pat.
Oh,
He
Hey,
got the meat that
Pat.
never ski.
oh
Ew.
Lord.
What's up,
He done had
Pat?
he done had two slushes. He done had two slushes.
Now he running. Oh yeah. I mean, the man over there on the couch laid out. Oh
He
my
over the
God,
couch. I'm like, can I get a refill? Cut the slushy machine back up.
man.
Baby,
Hey,
I can't.
if y'all didn't understand, if y'all didn't know what this was, this is Nightcap Knowledge, Real Talk, Real Issues, Real Solution, and we're gonna tell it like a TI is, and we might not be always politically correct, but I be goddamn, we're gonna tell it true, and that's what we here to do: have fun and be us,
And put some on your head
and
before you go
accept
to
your
bed.
people for who they are.
For all that they are.
For all that they are, as my big mama would say, I am who I am, teeth and tongue. Can't be nobody
Come on, come on.
else.
Well, look,
We're gonna
Mac, we
we're gonna
appreciate you giving the disclaimer. And Tanya, how are you doing?
Listen, I am
I'm
doing
going on mute.
wonderful. Yeah, please. I think I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited about tonight's show. I've been working with kids all day today since about 10:30 a.m. and ended up being called to do the work of working with another group.
Okay.
And so I am excited about tonight's guest because I know I want to jump right into the show
Yeah.
because when we're talking about children, and this is a great way to segue into our first guest tonight, Dr. Gigi Hamilton, who works with not only is she a mother, she's an educator, she's an author. And when we're talking about kids, this is her world. She inspires. I met her last year at the Thrive conference, and she's been inspiring me since. And I love how she talks about healing and speaking to our kids in ways that we never knew were so simple, which leads with the emotions
Hmm.
and understanding those emotions. Because today in this impromptu lesson I taught today, I asked the kids, I said, what do you like about music? What is music to you? And so one little girl says, she says, music is something I listen to when I'm depressed and angry.
Mm.
And so I said, what does your body feel like when you're angry? And she says, I don't want to do anything. She says, I just probably sometime I go back and forth. I'll lay down and it makes me upset. I throw things. She said, I don't want anybody to say anything to me.
Hmm.
I said, so what does your body feel like when you're depressed? She said, I just lay there. She said, because I feel like no one loves me. No one is here to help me. So sometimes I just lay there. And I said, well, how long have you felt this way? She's now sixth grade. She said, since she was in the fourth grade.
My
So I
God.
asked her, I said, have you been able to talk to someone like mom, dad, auntie? Have they gotten someone that you could talk to outside of the household?
Hmm.
She said, I used to, but I don't anymore. And so, which is a great way to bring in Dr. Gigi Hamilton, our first guest tonight. This is her world. What's up, Dr. Gigi? She is
Hey
dedicated to
y'all.
changing your game of life. Dr. Gigi, meet my co-host, Dr. DJ George Chuck. Okay.
I like that, Dr. DJ.
And,
Yeah.
and Dr. Mr. Mac. Listen, we're all doctors tonight.
Yes.
How have you been?
I've been good. It's so great to see you.
You as well. I know I couldn't see you this past week while you were in
Yes.
Portland because I had just gotten back in and you were heading out the next day. So
Yes.
we're
I
gonna
hate I
keep
missed
happening.
you.
I
Yes.
know. Listen, that was the weekend to be because I had so many shows and events
Hmm.
happening, but it's gonna come back around. It's gonna come back around.
That's
Um,
right.
so I don't want to prolong our show because I know we have a ton of guests, but I definitely want you to tell everyone who you are in your own words and why you do the work you do,
Sure.
and talk about your recent release of your child your children's book, and then we can get into. I know you want to talk more about what I shared about one of our babies today, and then I
Mhm.
had some questions to ask you that our families can kind of begin to look at signs and know when to begin, seeking support.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who don't know, I actually reside in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I'm from Toledo, Ohio. In Charlotte, I practice as an organizational psychologist, which means I go into organizations and I look at their processes, help them improve. But ultimately, I focus primarily on all things wellness. I also practice as a licensed psychotherapist, so I have a counseling and consulting firm. And what we do is we have a counseling section where we really spend time working with children, adolescents, adults. I mean, you name it, we're specializing in that. I am an Army veteran, so I was a therapist in the Army. And if you can imagine what that's like, the cultural, unique differences and challenges that people in the military face are really difficult. So even now in our practice, we do a lot of work with service members and veterans because it's so important. Um, the children's book that you're talking about, it's called My Comfort Tree. It's just one of my favorite books. And really, what it does is for elementary school kids, it helps them navigate and understand how to deal with change. And it does that by having the children identify in their own world a tree that they may see driving by that they can relate to that gives them comfort. And it has questions at the end of the book. So when you're reading it in the classrooms, the teacher or the adult that's reading it can give them get some little insight on what the children are feeling. And the way it's shaped is primarily dealing with children that have gone through a divorce. But what I've noticed is any child that's dealing with some type of change, they'll bring it up and be able to have the conversation when the adults are reading the book and asking them questions. So it's pretty profound.
And Chuck and Mac, feel free to jump in with questions. I think the first question I had was, before I even asked about the signs, when children are going through changes, what are some of the things that kids have shared with you how they feel as far as like internal? Because
Sure.
externally we may see, the physical change, but internally, some kids' physical, external is way ahead than their internal, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So, what are some things that you've seen and heard?
Well, let's kind of break it down based on age range too, right? So you have your elementary school kids, you have middle school, and then you are dealing with high school teenagers. So for elementary and middle school, and even for high schoolers, what the bigger issue is as it relates to going through emotional issues is that they don't have the language or the words to give it a name just yet. If you think about it, even as adults, we can say we're mad, we can say we're happy, but we can't say out loud or don't even think to say, oh, that person really disappointed me. Right. So, one of the things we have to do as parents is to give them the language. We have to teach them the words to utilize so that they actually know how to do that. And so, there is this image you can go on Google, look at the anger iceberg. And what an anger iceberg is, it talks about anger being the emotion that the world sees, right? And this is good for couples and anyone actually. But what happens is, if you sit in your anger, think about it when you're mad at someone, you're angry, right? And you're trying to deal with the issue, but because you're so upset, and you don't attach it to the true emotion, you never get resolution. So, what we have to do if our child comes in and they're upset or they're angry, I am a huge proponent of having the words on the refrigerator. I tell people to do this all the time. Put the words, put the anger iceberg on the refrigerator or the list of emotions. And when people are upset, let's go to the refrigerator. What is it that you're feeling? Right? Because what children typically do, they don't even have the thank you, whoever pulled that up. And that's my favorite one to actually use too. And all the words are kind of negative in here sometimes, but you got to understand where the emotion is coming from, right? So it's a beautiful thing because if I can sit here and say, I feel rejected, right? I feel attacked. I'm disappointed. When you start to address that, then you can get to some resolution of what's really happening. Now, the other thing that happens, if they don't have the language to utilize to tell you what's going on, what does happen is they can tell you that I have a stomach ache, I have a headache, I don't want to go to school today, right? I don't feel good. And they're now coming from a somatic experience. And as parents, we miss that those somatic symptoms are really emotional. Does that make sense? So, yeah, so we have a lot of work to do in educating our children on, okay, little Johnny, you're upset. Let's kind of sit down and talk this through. Let's look at this, refrigerator. Let's look at what these emotions are. Now let's talk about it, right? So you're stressed. What happened today? You're anxious. You got a test tomorrow, right? If we can start to help them identify that, then we can help them start to say, Mommy, I'm feeling anxious today, or Dad, I'm really annoyed because my friend kicked me off the game, or something like that.
Yeah, I've experienced some of these emotions as it relates. I have two boys,
Mm-hmm.
and like you mentioned the game. So one of the things that causes us great stress
Mm-hmm.
when the boys get mad at their friends for they're competing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we say, well, look, if you can't control your emotions while you're in the game, then we need to get you out of the game and we need to do something else. So are we handling that the correct way, or is there another way for us to handle that as parents?
Well, it's so interesting because Saturday I actually spoke at a Black Tech conference here in Charlotte on gaming and esports because my son is a gamer.
Okay.
And yeah, and so we did this fireside chat, and the moderator asked me, what is rage quitting? How do you deal with that? Right. And so my son was in the room and they started laughing because they all do it. Right. I think the hard part about it is, to be honest with you, I mean, and I'm not a gamer in that sense, but I think it's glamorized a little bit, right? In the sense that breaking the remotes, throwing them down. People are watching you do this, right? They actually have people on YouTube or, that are doing videos just showing how much they rage. So what we have to do is teach them some appropriate coping skills, right? If you can't figure out how to get off that game in a manner and adjust your emotions because you're losing, or because someone said something to you. Now bullying happens on here too, so we got to figure out what it is that they're upset about, right? So finding the root cause of what's happening is really important, but even more so, teaching them about the poor behavior that they see other kids do is important, as well as giving them some coping skills on how they need to manage it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that so much because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, they're at Tougaloo, and Mac, Tanya, and all of us graduated from Tougaloo, and then
Mm-hmm.
even in the background, Tougaloo is now being celebrated as like conference champs in esports.
Yes.
And you've got kids that are aspiring to do this, and I'm looking at my now 9-year-old, and I'm like, do I how are you going to handle this if you compete? Let's say you do baseball, you sing in the choir, and then you gaming. How are you going to handle all of these different emotions that you're gonna have to experience as you matriculate through high school, college, and potentially at a professional level? I got to make sure that we're preparing you, in the best way possible. So thank you.
Right. So, oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and at 13, they can start making money,
Right.
right? So if that's the route they're going, or what they want to do, then you're right. Exactly. You have to start preparing him. Okay, now you're an esports athlete, right? And if you're gonna do that, you have to stand out, and you have to stand out by being the example. So what you don't get to do is this, and this, like all the other people that are just playing, and showing inappropriate behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
You're welcome.
I
So
go
so
ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
no, I was listening to what she was saying. Is like telling for parents, and I know we have a thing we do called Parents Academy, and I think these type of tools are really good to help parents to teach, because majority of us have, like when we talk about financial literacy, we repeat what we see, but our parents did not know to teach us. So we got to have a whole thing of teaching the parent these type of skills to help them know teach the child, and not only teach the child, but for the parent to mimic and let them see them how they handle it themselves. Because that's, children learn 75% by seeing and 25 by listening. And and I think those type of tools are really, really, really good. Like that information that you're giving us is something that we as parents got to model too, for them to see us and to be able to teach them how that works. So
Right. And generationally, we have some catching up to do, right? Because if we think about the fact that, okay, I'll just speak for myself here. When I was growing up, I was taught, you better not get pregnant. That's what I was taught. But for my brother, he was taught, you better not cry, right? And both of those were with exclamation marks. There was not much that came after that. So the missing components that we had to figure out was, okay, for as a young man, if I'm not supposed to cry, then what do I do? What do I do with all this stuff inside? So we stuff, or they stuff, right? Um, or you learn your own rough skills. It's kind of like a rusty nail or a rusty hammer. You got this tool, it kind of works, but it's not the best tool. So you end up either avoiding situations, just shutting down, and just not using the best coping skills, even as parents. So now you're raising children. And if you don't even have the best skills, then how do you then teach your child? Oh, no, that's an inappropriate way to handle being upset. Let's figure out why you're upset. Now let's come up with some other solutions.
Which is a question I was going to bring up. Man, y'all said some things that truly speak out, because our next guests that are going to be coming in, and Dr. Gigi, you're more than welcome to stay on when we start bringing Dr. Fred in, because this is going to carry over to the conversation there with the PTSD. So I'm going to hold those questions for a reason. But when we started talking about, and Mac, you said it, I have chills how I feel right now because of things that I was told as a child, that I have experienced as an adult. Now I'm a mother, and I've seen some of those things from my childhood that I've modeled in the wrong way, that they repeated, right? So the question was, what are some signs that our parents can be aware of when their children are going through these moments? Because we talk about the anger iceberg. And one of the questions I did have from the anger iceberg is, when we're saying these words to them, are we giving them a definition to that word? Or are we allowing them to find what that feeling is that is associated with that word?
Yeah, I think we could give them the definition of the word, and because we have to educate them. I mean, you're talking about they have a blank canvas. So we have to fill that canvas in with information, because they're getting the information already, but they're getting it from YouTube, they're getting it from Snapchat, so we have to give them the correct information. So what I'll say as it relates to, what was your question again? I'm sorry, I got stuck on that.
The question was, when we do give them the definition and the information, and because you did touch on that, they have so many resources and access to so much at this current time. How do parents, what are signs that can make them aware? Because some things, and just correct me if I'm wrong, some kids can learn something on social media and be manipulated to think that that's what that really is, when
Yes.
there's something else going on. So how are parents able to see those signs without forcing, yeah, you're going to get help because you need it? So what are some ways our parents can look for a sign?
Right. Well, one of the things that I am truly concerned about right now, and it's for adults, it's for our young adults, our college students, and specifically our young kids that have been impacted by COVID. We have kind of just moved on with life, but I believe, and clinically they're showing that because of the pandemic, children are now behind cognitively, right? So there's kind of some delay that has happened, because developmentally they had to stop the world for the most part. They tried to fill in those blanks, but you can't replace the social interaction that they were missing. I mean, we were in a pandemic, so it really changed everything. Now, I am a huge proponent of getting children therapy even when they don't need it. Follow me on this. For example, I put my son in therapy his freshman year in high school, and he went kicking and screaming because he was like, this makes no sense. I don't know this dude, you know, like there's nothing wrong. But I told him, I was like, you need somebody to talk to outside of your parents.
Mm.
And there will come a day where something will happen for you and you can't talk to me and you need someone. And I already want you to have a relationship
Yeah.
with this person. Now, he went to therapy his entire high school time and sat there. And yeah, I mean, they talked, but he was only on the surface. Now, as a 19-year-old, he had a breakup with his first girlfriend. And he went, who did he go to see? His therapist. And that was the first time he truly opened up as a young man. And now, but I don't think he could have done that at all had he not had that 4-year relationship with someone that he knows and trusts.
Yeah. Wow. That's major right there.
Yeah.
So we have to normalize it. We have to normalize it. We don't. They're thinking go to therapy because something's wrong.
Yeah.
Why not go to therapy so you can talk about when you're having a stressful day? Go to therapy because you're trying to figure out what you want to do in college, you know, or in school. Go
Yeah.
to therapy because you want to talk about your teacher or your mommy punished you. You know what I mean? Go and talk about those things. And you don't have to stay forever, but you do want to have this ongoing relationship as life happens.
So you said, and that leads me to the second question. You said when you sent him, he went kicking and screaming, right? What was your way of consistently making sure he followed through with going? Because again, some parents gonna be like you just said, some parents you believe in going when there's nothing happening. That way you're building up the calluses of resources to help you when something does happen, right?
Sure.
So what are some ways to continue that that support of pushing them forward to go?
Sure. I went with him for quite some time, up until he was probably a senior. You know, like once he started driving and everything, then I was like, all right, you can go on your own.
So that goes back to what Max said, be the example for what we want our
Yeah.
kids
Be
to
the
see.
example. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, and I'm a
Wow.
therapist, but I can't help him, you know, in that way. That's not my role. I'm his mom. So he's gonna get mom from me and not the therapist, you know.
I
So
love it.
you gonna mom him.
I mom him, yes. Which he decided to mute me today. Look, he didn't came up with the imaginary mute button. I'm like, oh no, you didn't. Yes.
Wow.
I
I mean,
remember,
look,
Okay.
I remember the first time Jackson did that to my wife. Jackson, and he's fine.
Same thing.
wow. Listen, what's up, Auntie Melinda? Look, this show is going so great because I want to go ahead on and bring Dr. Fred in, our in-house psychologist. And Dr. Fred, as you come on in, meet Dr. Gigi. What's up, Dr. Fred?
Hi.
It's very nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so Dr. Fred, we were scheduled to do a D9 clinician where we bring Dr. Gigi. Are you Greek? Did you pledge a sorority?
I am not. No.
So you're me, but you're still you.
Yes. Yes.
So you could actually stay in because there may be some questions with our continuing talking about mental health awareness, which I'm so excited. Dr. Fred, I know you have some amazing brothers that are coming in, and I'm gonna let you introduce them, and I'm gonna mute, and we're gonna keep this conversation going on because before I stop to pause, I will say if y'all have any questions, please put them in the comment section. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Please share, tell your people to log on. You never know, there may be something that they can get while they're here. Dr. Gigi has been giving us all type of tips, educating us, and also reaching back to our childhood trauma so it can help our adult life now, where we're talking about the PTSD, which is Dr. Fred. It's your floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I am just, in the words of my old pastor, peacock proud and hyena happy.
Boy, you so country. Come on with it. Come on with it.
Wow.
So very excited to be here. And so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and bring in, I do have 3 brothers, Devin Whitepeck, Reginald Riggins, and Abdul Walker.
There we go. Everybody's all here.
Oh, this panel looks so good. My God. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Good. So I guess what we could do is, since we have everyone on here, we know Dr. Fred, but and I'm calling y'all doctors. I don't know if you are, but I'm a manifester right now. Hey, eat my bullshit. All right, so Dr. Abdul, Dr. Reginald, Dr. Devin, let us know who you are. I don't know who want to go first, what your area of specialty is in mental health, and then we're gonna jump right in, and we can segue from the question I had before, and we'll keep it going.
Yeah.
I guess I can start. My name is Devin Whitepeck. In the state of Illinois, I'm a licensed clinical therapist, clinically licensed therapist. Currently, right now, I'm into care coordination. I'm working for the Blue Cross Blue Shield. So really helping, link up, a lot of our members with resources within the community. By trade, I am an art therapist, which I have not done much of that as of lately, but it's still a tool that I use within my sessions. When I was doing therapy, it just was a tool. So yeah.
Good deal. We appreciate you for being here, brother.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, who we got next?
I'll go ahead. I'm Dr. Reginald Riggins. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I am a Jacksonian by way of Chicago. I did my undergrad and graduate work at Jackson State. I did my internship and residency at the South Texas VA, both were trauma focused. So I was also the PTSD substance abuse psychologist for South Texas for a couple of years. So I have a lot of training and experience in treating primarily veterans with PTSD from the Korean War era all to the current one, and sexual violence, combat, non-combat trauma. I've seen and heard it all pretty much, and I'm trained in multiple treatments for PTSD, not just individual, but group and couples. Currently, I am running a private practice based in Texas, and I also do contract work for other companies. So I do a little work as far as helping veterans with their mental health claims. I do private practice, as I said, and also I go into skilled nursing facilities and provide brief therapy for some of the residents at those facilities as well.
Good deal. Good deal. And last but certainly not least.
Good evening, everybody. I personally feel like I am probably the least qualified here. My degree, my minor was psychology, but I was here to speak on behalf of mental health, especially amongst the D9. But definitely one thing I do as far as the psychological part goes is I am a huge person of not just psychological awareness and as well as trauma awareness, but I speak consistently daily with young Black men in trying to break down different childhood traumas, working with a lot of therapy techniques that I've been using myself. I personally have been through a plethora of over a decade of working in and out of different facilities and learning different techniques to use socially to help the young men in the streets.
That is awesome.
Right. So to back it up, you are qualified to be here because on your wall it says every day is a gift. So your gift, you're giving your gift every day with the youth. Right. You're giving your gift. You started with self. So you are more than qualified. So I'm going to retract that. And you're welcome. So I really want to jump right into the question that I held from talking with Dr. Gigi. We talk about childhood trauma. Things that I was in a therapy session last week with my therapist, and I had a revelation of some things that I did not know that started in my childhood. Later, I saw in my marriage of over 20 years. Now I'm seeing in my kids who did not want to go to therapy that I had to force them to therapy just so they begin to peel back the layers. And so watching them, I lived through some moments of trauma for myself through their healing, and they're still going through. So whoever want to jump in, talk about childhood trauma and some of the adults you've worked with and how you've seen, what are some signs that you've seen that adults are still dealing with those traumas?
Great question.
Look, we could all speak on that one, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, so one of my actually close friends who I work with, or who I speak with constantly, his childhood trauma came from his mother having not, I'll say, like a fully developed emotion, or like I heard the Dr. Gigi say it, where she was raised a very specific way on how to move, and the fathers in the household were in and out. She had about 4 different husbands of her trying to find love, but the problem is that he grew up trying to figure out how to be a man, and with it being Men's Mental Health Month, that one sticks out to me the most because he's been through 2 marriages, and the difficulties he's had in both was him trying to emulate something that he really couldn't put his finger on because he never really understood what it was. He was trying to be a man that he had never really met. He was emulating everything that he saw and pulling different pieces. He was reading a ton of books, and it ended up becoming very toxic, and he became very aggressive. He became very, like, it was just everything that he thought he should be, but it wasn't the things that would make a good caregiver, a good man, a good father. You know what I mean? Like, he was just being what he thought he should be. And I'm 36, he's 34. And no matter how many times we spoke on it, we've addressed it, he's actually reclused from me a bit because of it. Because even the things that I've learned with losing my father younger and me being a husband and a father now, me trying to input some of that wisdom from the trials that I went through, it just doesn't stick. And you can see it's that discomfort of trying to figure out, like, is this a man? That's not what I think a man should be. You know what I mean? And it just makes him, unfortunately, toxic a bit.
Mm.
You know, one of the hallmark symptoms of trauma, PTSD. I mean, you can have trauma and not develop PTSD, but avoidance is a big symptom of PTSD. Because you don't want to remember the things you went through or feel the things that you felt at the time. And so you find different ways. So if you see someone that's older who's gone through trauma, you may see that they're addicted to alcohol or illicit drugs, promiscuous behavior, irritability, a lot of anger for little small things. Doesn't take much to set them off. Workaholics, so achieving a lot, always earning and putting a big emphasis on achieving just so that they can keep their mind off of what they went through. Intimacy issues, that's another one, both male and female. There's problems with communication. How many times we hear couples have problems with communication? Well, I don't really want to, get too close to you because if I do, then I'll get hurt. That's what I learned when I was a child. Right? If my mom or dad hurt me or a family friend hurt me, well, what chance do I got with a stranger? So there's a lot of thoughts, a lot of distorted thinking that gets developed when someone is dealing with trauma, especially in childhood, because that's when your brain's still developing. So this is how you're like introduced to the world. So you're really like trying to figure out, how do I stay safe when the people that's supposed to keep me safe don't? So you can see some of those things in adults as signs, that maybe you've been through something, especially irritability. If you're like just angry and yelling all the time, getting physical or violent, more than likely that person's been assaulted in some type of way.
Yeah. And can I just quickly jump in? And I see a lot of couples, and when they come in for their initial session, one of the first things, I tell everyone this, is that our goal in working together is to help you grow up your 7-year-old self, because, that 7-year-old is carrying all the stuff, right? And what happens is we just grow up and we think, all right, I'm 18, I'm grown, I can get out of there. But it manifests later in our relationships. So when you come into therapy, we have to start with, let's go back and let's talk about what life was like growing up. And we have to start talking about the development of those belief systems, right? My favorite question to people is, when do you first have an understanding of what love is? And if you didn't have a male parent in that household or a relationship that you saw and it was like a single parent home, how do you define what love looked like? But then we're getting married and trying to create it when we have never seen it. So if we don't understand what those belief systems are in so many areas, then we're struggling with marriage in general, right? So it's just so profound. So I'm so glad you're talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I think kind of a little bit about what Reginald said when it comes to like that understanding of it. I think there's a certain level of empathy that you have to have for, and this is hard because I think this is kind of goes outside of that person that has, these certain behaviors, whether it be like violent or, or a very skewed vision of what love is. It takes, I think, society or the individual or the therapist, whoever, a certain level of empathy to kind of understand that, right? Before you even kind of know the full story. I think in the most extreme circumstances, I've seen it. I've worked in the prison system for a couple of years as a therapist, and I've seen the most extreme versions of that. I had a client that his first introduction to physical contact with a female was his father used to beat his girlfriend and force her to have sex with him when he was like 12, like 11. And so he fortunately he didn't grow up doing the things that his father was doing, but his connection with women was very unhealthy, very I wouldn't very overprotective about women that wasn't even like that he was not even romantically involved with or even like knew of or friends, I would say. So learning and seeing those things and kind of understanding that, I think that's a big something that I think is highly ignored, having the empathy and understanding of why this person is. It's like, if anybody ever heard this song by J. Cole, it's off his album KOD. The song is number 9. It's called Once an Addict. If anybody, if y'all want to listen to it, it perfectly illustrates how parents, mothers, the song specifically talk about moms, can really traumatize your child through your actions, right? Like, so you seeing your parent go through all these, your special, or your mom in this circumstance going through all of these breakups, all of these failed relationships. She's bitter, she's mad, she's pissed off. She takes it out on her son, who honestly just wants her to feel better, and so but that's kind of what that song is about. And yeah, so it's about the empathy and really kind of understanding and seeing that perspective. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to add that onto that.
Yeah. I was Chuck, you had a question. I didn't want to afraid you had something. I didn't want to jump in and just what I wanted to do was, because I love where this is going, and it's a similar question that I asked earlier with our kids. We talked about the signs of someone who's experiencing PTSD, generational traumas, and listen, this is and my PR team know, Dr. Gigi, we talk about this. I don't know why God is pushing me into this world of mental health, but I ran from it for the longest. But I'm so grateful to be in this space and share this moment with you all, because preachers' kids, Chuck and I, preachers' kids, this wasn't something you pray God gonna fix it and let God do it, and that's it.
Hey.
Well, God put us all through school so we could help.
Listen, trust me.
I was like,
listen, trust me. On 1400 Lynch Street, I had to deal with that as like my introduction into learning how to be a therapist. Because that was always the first thing someone would say to me. Well, I'm gonna let God handle it. It's gonna leave it up to Him. I'm gonna just leave it up to Him. I said, okay, how's that working right now for you? And then, I'm not listening. I'm a Christian. I don't know every verse in the Bible, but I do know it says something about faith is what? With faith without works is what? Oh, okay.
And then study to show thyself, right?
Give
That's,
him the
that's the
horn.
thing.
Give him the horn.
But look,
And then,
but
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, and I think that was going to be my question. How do we encourage adults, especially our Black families? Kendrick Lamar is one of my favorite artists, right? Kendrick Lamar to me is the modern Tupac. That's and I love pop. How do we encourage our families? Because I was hearing, social media has so many ways of telling us how to do things, but our families are different, right? How do we encourage our families or your best friend who you see is going through traumas, but they're saying like, I ain't going to get no help. How do we begin to encourage them in seeking support?
That honestly is like a daily job for me.
Yes.
In care coordination. I mean, it's the biggest barrier that I have seen is the lack of trust that certain families have, right? So, and this goes into multiple avenues. So, will be that they either had a previous. Okay, I'm gonna just rip the Band-Aid off on this.
Come on.
A lot of their previous therapists or treating clinicians have been white women. And I don't think white women understand how they have impacted Black families in a negative way in a lot of times. It might be for professional reasons, and I get it, right? But they in a sense have traumatized a lot of families from even seeking help, whether it might be undermining the family, reporting the family, or just having a really strong disconnect. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to encourage the family, like I had this, I have this woman that I was trying to get her in contact with, a therapist, and I was working with her. And, the thing is that, I try to find a therapist that looks like her daughter, which is really hard to find. But, really talking with her and really hearing her about what are her concerns, really finding out, like letting the family or the mother have a really say so and a voice and how she wants this treatment to go, or have the daughter have what her treatment, how she wants it to go. And really being able to listen to them, because, a lot of times in our circles, whether or in our community, we're not listened to a lot of times. Because if we were, Black women wouldn't be dying at the rate they are in childbirth. So I think that is something that is really crucial. Really listening and really having an open ear and really paying attention.
Yeah, I personally, I believe the encouraging part, especially, it's funny you were bringing up the church thing. So I personally was raised in a church, but was not very of church. I grew up always saying I was spiritual. The way God brings you around is now I'm an elder of a year at my church, and I've gotten into ministry, and I preach as well. And being into ministry now, and also digging so deep, because it's funny, I was like in the beginning of this, I was like, I'm a little bit under par, but now I know why God has me speaking. Come on. So I'm a child of trauma myself. So my mother was a drug addict. My mother was a crack cocaine addict for over 25 years of my life. She did the pipe locked in the room with her when I was 6. I come from Camden, New Jersey, so that's its own thing if you want to Google Camden. But now I have a marriage, I have 2 kids, I have a successful job, I have a household. And I always am trying to upbring everyone around me. And the encouraging part is really, in my opinion, is in the testimony. It's in, like you just said, seeing someone that looks like you, being able to, because the problem with the encouragement, and even with me, where I fell off a lot of my therapy is a lack of self-love. Like, before I had my kids, I had a reason to be great trying to please my father. And when my father passed, I kind of ran out of gas because I didn't know what I was still shooting for, because I was cool with the bare minimum. Like that's an unfortunate part of a lot of our culture is you're taught not to shine. Like even like because especially when you grow up in the projects, you're taught to kind of keep your head down and be quiet because you don't want to be a target. So like it was a lot of lack of self-love. I had to learn, like coming up, is I almost had to learn how to dumb myself down to not be a target. And then when I got grown, when I became an adult and became like fully proficient, I didn't really know what I was doing or why I was doing it. And then when I had my kids and my wife met me, and I started finding all these new motives and new things. So now when I'm speaking to kids or people who they have like no direction whatsoever, and they're always looking at me and they're like, man, you got it made, man, your life is great. It's like, you have no idea how quickly things can shift for your life if you really start to see purpose in yourself. It's like that's the whole thing. Is right now I have a best friend who's currently incarcerated. He's from Compton. It's funny you mentioned Kendrick. He's actually from Compton, but he was born a gang member. Like not born a gang member. In the neighborhood that he's from, Compton, where he lives, he was put on when he was 10. It wasn't an option. Like he got off the bus and it was like, if you eating off the block, you working, or you get off the block. That was the only two options. Now, what's crazy about him is he is so educated. He's so powerful. He has a true spirit and he knows the Bible actually better than I do. But he's currently serving a bid for almost 12 years. And it's like, I remember the moments when I tried to coach him through before he got locked up. And the thing that sent him in was honestly just it was a lack of self-love. We had got together. I had rebuilt his resume. He started doing photography and was amazing at it. Started making good money, was launching his own business because he was a 2-time felon by that point. He couldn't work anywhere else, but he was making good money. He was straight. And then him and his mother said to him, you're nothing but like a gangster. You're nothing but a drug addict. You're nothing but, and I'll never forget that phone call because it broke my heart. Because he said, man, I'm finna go crash out. That's a term they use out in Cali. He said, I'm finna go crash out. I'm finna go do whatever. I said, bro, what's going on? He said, man, my mama don't even love me. Why would I love myself? As a person who always has the answer to every question, that was the first time in my 26 years at the time of life where I did not have a response. And it made me realize how close every single one of us is to almost giving up. Because like, if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have a self-love, if you don't have like a purpose in you, it takes something that quick. And that's what happens in a lot of our communities. When we're talking about encouragement, that's how you lose encouragement. Because in that moment, he could have wanted the greatest things in the world for himself. But when he saw that his mother didn't want anything for him, the person who gave him life, he's like, why would I care about my own life? And so what I've always tried to do in relation to the question is to be an example, to be a testimony, to be a light. Like we're talking about in the Bible, you got to let that light shine. You can't cover it. You have to be a walking proof, especially in our culture, because it all sounds good, right? It's all the therapy, and that's the hard part with therapy. It all sounds good, like you were saying, when you have this like proper woman over here just telling you all these things, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. You read the book, I get it, but I got to go back to the projects.
Yeah,
I hear everything you're telling me, but I got to go back to the hood. Like it's dudes on my block. I got to walk past them. So how do I not become a target? I got to go help my mama eat. Like I hear everything you're telling me, but how do I make that work? And that's where each one, and that's the one thing my father, rest his soul, he taught me, is you start at home, because when people see that it's possible, it gives them a target. And I think that that's what we're missing in our culture now. It happened a lot during, everybody, we studying Black history, when we was having a major propelling of the culture, and then the music and the culture started kind of tearing us back down.
Yeah.
And now we're back at square one, where we're having to relearn how to propel ourselves again. You know what I'm saying? But it starts at home. Like each one of us that's on this podcast, when we're seen out in public, somebody can say, dang, they look like me. He came from where I came from, and he has a car. That's crazy. So yeah, it's really just being the example, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Wiggins.
Oh, okay. I share those sentiments. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. You can Google that if you like as well. I've seen everything you can think of imaginable outside my window. And that's one of the reasons why I want to get in this field, because I'm wondering, like, why is certain people going this way and this, these certain folks going this way? You join gangs or you on drugs or prostitution. Like, I mean, I really seen the prostitutes go in the van, get in, go around the corner, wait a little minute. The time, about 15 minutes, and come right back, get dropped off in the same spot, like clockwork. Or kids getting shot just looking out their window just because they just want to see what's going on. It's traumatic, and we have all these things going on in our backyard, and you don't know anything different, right? And yeah, you talk about gang culture, you talk about everything that's involved in that. That's just PTSD on steroids. That's no different than going, to war in Iraq or Afghanistan. But this is your day to day, and you're so traumatized, you don't know any other way but to react a certain way, how to be. Um, it does start at home. It does start at having more people that look like us in the field, providing those services to help those who need the care. I'm a minority fellow with the American Psychological Association. Their goal is to produce more people of color in mental health, and to help promote them, to help push them to get those degrees. And it is very, very, very important to have more of us in those rooms to let it be okay. Yeah, I look like you. Hey, I talk like you. Hey, I got tattoos, like you. I'm Greek too. It's just a lot of similarities that make it comfortable.
Yeah.
Because now I know the book too, but I'm not gonna speak like I know the book. If anything, you just know I'm Dr. Riggins, but you wouldn't know unless I just told you, right? And that's how you got to come at folks when it comes to these things, because they want real people to help them solve real problems, and at least they can at least think, hey, this person might have a clue, or they've had some life experience. So where, because you can't be a therapist without life experience or have gone through some things, whether you was personally or at least or you've seen it, so you can actually understand a little bit more and have that empathy, like my brother over here said before. That's so important. But it does start at home. The way we communicate to our kids, the way we communicate to our spouses, if our kids are watching, because you can actually transfer trauma over to your kids just by talking the way you talk or acting the way you act. If dad is looking out the window or checking the locks multiple times at night, or he's carrying his gun everywhere he goes, or he's always, jumpy, that child is going to start to mimic those same behaviors, because this is how I'm learning how to live. I'm learning how to be in this world. If you've seen the Five Heartbeats, and you remember the scene where Eddie Kane is getting ready to go on tour and become that big star, but what does Daddy tell him?
God damn.
I ain't ish, and you ain't gonna be ish either.
Yeah.
Or you ain't ish because I want you, something like that. And look what happened to him at the end of that movie.
Yep.
Nights like this, I wish. I'm like, he literally spoke that into his son, even though his son had this seemingly bright future. But Eddie Kane never had love at home.
Yeah.
No matter how talented you are, no matter what opportunities you have, if you don't have the things that you need from home, it is going to dwindle. If you don't have that faith in yourself and that love in yourself, it is going to dwindle. I don't care how much money you make. We've seen a lot of people who are rich and famous jump off buildings.
Yep.
So I want to just add on to what Brother Walker said about, it does start at home, and we got to make it okay to talk about these things. No, son, it's okay to cry. It's okay to have emotions. You are a human being. It's not, you're not a punk, you're not a wuss, you're not this or that because you're hurting emotionally. Because you know what, I don't want you to hurt somebody else or yourself when you get older, because you never emotionally process what happened.
Say that.
Yeah.
That's what PTSD is. Go ahead. Fred.
We have Dr. Gigi hand came up with Dr. Fred, and then we have some questions in the comments section. So go ahead, Dr. Gigi.
Okay, so one of the things someone had asked in the chat about how do we address community trauma. First of all, we have to really understand that racial trauma is a real thing, right? I mean, you were just talking about where we come from. I grew up in the projects too at one point, and we experienced some things that the rest of the world can't understand. Right. So when people that look like us come and sit down, they don't have to do extra explaining. You know what I mean? So, but racial trauma is not in our diagnostic manual. Okay, so race-based trauma isn't there, but we have to start bringing that conversation into our sessions to let people know yeah, well, you're struggling with some things, and this is why, and this is how we actually manage it. And the other thing I'll quickly say, when I was in New Orleans last week, Tanya, you can appreciate this. I'm sitting here in this 5-star hotel, and the bellman came up, and so him and I just started talking, and he was telling me where to go, where not to go in New Orleans. But he finds out that this is the work that I do. And he started asking me these questions like, Black men go to therapy? I was like, oh, yes, they do. He was like, well, what's that life like? Right. I was like, why don't you have a seat for a minute? Right. So we just sit down and we're just sitting there chilling and talking, and he was like, I have so many questions. And I was like, ooh, and I have so many answers, because the other thing is we have to normalize the conversation. We have to,
Yes.
anybody I can have a conversation with, and you start off, like you said, you don't tell them your credentials and all that. You just have
Yeah.
this conversation and you slide that in, and they're
Mhm.
curious. They're curious
Yep.
because they thought about going. Now we have to make it okay. And I'm going to give you all this because I use it all the time. I say everybody needs couch time. And when I
Yes.
tell you that normalizes the conversation and does a level set, and they start thinking, you walk away from them, they're like, I might need to
Mhm.
call her, right? So
Mhm.
it's really interesting. So I just want to say, just normalizing it does help us move the needle.
I wanted to, because you said something about community trauma and normalizing. The first question, well, not question, but I thought about when I was growing up through high school and college, there were different communities within the school, right? The cool kids, not so
Mhm.
cool kids, the weed heads, the, sexually, explicit group and so forth. So within school, I would like try to figure out which community was my community.
Yeah.
Then when I became an adult, because I didn't know how to navigate again, because I grew up, if you go out and you're embarrassed, I'm gonna whip your butt. If you do this, because my motto was church, school, home, church, school, home, then church,
Yeah.
school, work, home, right? So when I found my community that was for me, I realized how much more like the PTSDs and traumas that I experienced because I felt like I didn't fit in. So someone put a question in the comment. Joseph said, "Can you talk about survivor mode? And how have you addressed it with clients or experienced it yourself?" Because that was, and I brought that up about myself because I had to learn who God called me to be, who ancestors have been speaking through, and the works that I do. And which allowed me to find the right space that I was supposed to be in. So if someone could talk about survivor mode, and you could touch on the community traumas, because I know you deal with people who some have not found their way, and they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s still trying to find their way. So and then you could talk about survival mode, the survival mode.
Yeah. So survivor mode. So I'm not gonna lie, Dr. Riggins, when you said carry your gun, I kind of flinched a little bit because my daughter, I carry my pistol wherever. So whenever I pack it, she already know we want to leave the house and go somewhere. I got
brother, I'm in Texas. Everybody's carrying.
but with survivor mode, I think it's much more common, I think, than people realize. And I mean that in the sense that a lot of people hinder themselves from basic joys of life, or I think connections and love relationships, due to protecting themselves. Because I kind of want to call survivor mode really protection. It's really a shield. It's really a means of how that person, because we can kind of bring it back to the childhood trauma, is really a primitive way of how they protected themselves when they were children, right? So you might have a young boy that used to, his mom probably talked to him like dirt. Like she probably talked to him like she had talked to her boyfriend, after she done caught him cheating. That's how she had talked to her son. And his response to it was always like absorbing that anger, that rage that he got from her, taking it out on something else or someone else, right? That is a survival mode because he honestly does not know what to do with whatever that energy, that negative energy that he's absorbing, right? Because what's the law of conservative energy that we know? Energy is never created or destroyed, simply transferred. And so that's what that survivor mode is. It can develop and look like those personality disorders, not having no real connections, not even knowing what love really is, uh, especially if you're talking about, a young lady that's probably was sexually abused, and used, by her, whether by maybe stepdad or uncle, those how is her, connections or relationships with men gonna be when she's an adult, and what that looks like. um it, it's probably not just her being, as they would say, a hoe, but it's something deeper. um that's another conversation because I can, yeah, but um yeah, that's survivor mode. Yeah, protection mode.
Go ahead, jump in.
Oh. I feel like this was my part of the show. So this is it's funny because I was doing a Bible study teaching about the potter and the clay, speaking just about how God is our potter and we're the clay, but we're made to be molded and specifically what he sets us to be. Survivor mode is shown primarily in our culture when we shift from, like you said, that childhood into any kind of adolescence or adulthood, because a lot of times we, in the beginning, we're following who we are, we love who we are, we're doing all this stuff, and then little things throughout the culture just start to chip at you, and it's like, all right, let me hide that feature about myself because that person doesn't like that. Let me be quiet right now because my mama don't like it when I say things about this. She doesn't understand this and that. And it's crazy because right now, survivor mode, survivor mode isn't even half just one of them things that ain't, if it's understood and it got to be explained. It's our current culture is survivor mode.
Yeah.
We have relationship traumas to the level that there's girls out here who think it's cool to not be loved by a man, to be used is cool because I'm a bad chick. I got this body on me. I know what he want me for. I'm cool with that. No, you're not. Stop saying that. Nah, bro, man. Yeah, I know. Nah, I don't love these girls. You're supposed to love these girls, bro. What's wrong with you? Like you out here, like, and we legit. It's crazy. We're so afraid, and that's the thing. Like we think we're being tough. That's that's when he said protection. That was the word that really stuck out to me, because we think we're being tough. Y'all hit it when in earlier in the conversation. One thing I've been stuck on with this Men's Mental Health Month has been how scarred generationally we are. My father was a very hardcore guy, military, very strict, cut corners. Like I used to have to tuck my corners on my bed. He'd check him. He was Army for 15 years, like all of that. But his father was a factory worker who didn't have time for affection. His father, his great was abusive in a sense because he had seen war. Now, I heard a guy, because where this all started with me was, why don't men know how to be affectionate? Why are we so scarred? Why are we so numb? And it's because of the survival mode. We're not allowed to be anything other than strong, especially in our community. It's almost like we're the closest to nature. It's like we feel like if I smile in public, somebody gonna stab me because I look weak. Like it's the craziest thing. And it's like I'm the first generation, but I had to learn it the hard way. Like I really had to learn how to be okay with feeling and being who I am. Like in my marriage is where it first exposed itself, because my dad, again, he tried, but he wasn't very affectionate. Like he loved me. He would have died for me, but he just couldn't, what he thought, make me soft. Now that's a crazy oxymoron for a person you'll die for, but you can't love them openly. That's wild. And it creates such a cold, like, it's an attachment. Like, it's like, I know you're my father. I know you're standing a fold for me, but I can't hug you. Like, I can't see you cry. I can't see you be vulnerable. But how am I supposed to act when I feel vulnerable? My marriage and God, I thank God for my marriage, because this is the first place where I've ever had to be really raw. Where, like, I went through a severe depression during college, because it was my first time ever being out in the world and not knowing how to express all of the trials of the world hitting me at one time. And I didn't do therapy because my father taught me, you control your mind. He taught me how to meditate. He taught me how to, read Bibles, how to read Sun Tzu, how to, education. But it doesn't deal with emotion. You know what I mean? That pain that you're feeling is still pain.
Yeah.
You can label it, you know what I mean? But you still have to move through it. And you were saying it, Dr. Riggins, about the children. This is when I started really having to deal with it. When I had my daughter, I was so numb to certain amounts of pain because I had to keep moving. I had to keep striving. I had to keep growing because I had a kid on the way. And when she came out and I realized that my depression was to the point where I was holding my daughter, but I was numb. This is a gift from God. Like, and I mean, I thoroughly understand the value of life. Like you said in Chicago, my first time I ever saw somebody killed, I was 6. I saw them get the back of their head shot. Like, and this was like less than 30 feet from me. But it just keeps moving. Your brain just keeps processing. You're not even tripping about it. And at this time, I'm holding life that I'm grateful for, that I worked hard for, and I was like, this is a problem. Like, and I'm numb. And the relationship between me and my wife, which is crazy because me and my wife both have childhood traumas. Her mother passed when she was 9. So she's extremely headstrong because she had to raise herself. My father, he didn't die until I was about 25, but I was on my own ever since I was 18. So we both know who we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We both, and that's, to link it all together, that's where the survival mode became dangerous for us, because if you're not in tune with God's love, if you're not in tune with self-love, if you're not in tune with self, you're just kind of these puppets that are moving through the motions. And the difficult part is, you think that it's right. You think that survivor mode is correct because it's the best version of yourself. As every generation before, like, they used to say, I did the best I could with what I had.
Right.
And that's where we still are. Those are the lessons that we were imprinted with. Yeah, I'm just doing the best, but we can do better because now we have more. We have opportunity now. We have education now. We have these things that we can outreach to. And I watched my daughter watch me argue. And that was the last straw for me. Like you said, Dr. Riggins, because, and I told my wife that, I said, I want this marriage to go forever, but I would leave this marriage in a heartbeat before I ever taught my daughter that that's the way a man loves a woman. Because I'm not violent. I would never put my hands on my wife, but to watch, I know it. You know what I mean? I can see it. I can feel it. She's watching me yell. And she goes, well, he is a loving man. That's how love looks.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, baby girl. Because if a dude say it to you, I'm going to kill him. So no, that's not what love looks like. And it's like, but then that's when I really had to, like, I had to get out of that survivor mode. Like, I realized that it's got to stop. Like, I'm not a pawn. I control my fate. Like, I am who God made me to be. I need to heal, and I need to, because, like, I think you just said it, the survivor mode, the dangerous part is that it kills off all joy. Because it doesn't allow you to receive blessings. You're not in the place that God has you to receive. You're creating your own path. So you're missing out on all you're missing out on all your love and all your joy. So it's a major thing, but it is beatable. We got to take action.
It's all
Go ahead, Dr.
avoidance.
Riggins. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Riggins.
I'll be brief.
Go ahead.
It's all avoidance. When you look at survival mode, it's all avoidance. When you look at it, kind of what I mentioned earlier, avoidance is one of the pillars of PTSD, where you don't want to address the memories or the emotions tied to whatever you went through, especially in childhood or even adulthood. And so you put on, Jay-Z said, and what was that song? He said, when his daughter was born, you had no father, you had the armor, but you got a daughter, got to get softer.
Yeah.
Why did he mention that first bar about the armor? The armor is what we as men, black men, we put on in our neighborhoods because we don't want to seem weak or look tough, especially if we've been through something. We don't want it to reoccur or happen again, be taken advantage of. And we put on this invisible suit of armor so that no one can hurt us. So that's why we look a certain way, right? We don't smile. You know, we look angry all the time, or we look, you know, always checking our back to see, hey, what you want? You know, you know, and so always in that hyper vigilant, you know, mindset. And Mr. Walker brought on a good point about emotional numbing. That's what he's talking about when he held his daughter and didn't feel those natural emotions that you should feel. You know, when you're traumatized, you know, your body does a wonderful thing of protecting itself emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't get hurt, right?
Mhm.
But so you put that wall up, so you can't. But you know, nothing gets in, but nothing gets out.
Yeah.
So it really it makes you look a certain way in your family. You know, Mr. Walker mentioned like the men in his family generation in a generational way. I wonder how they were perceived within their own families, but they didn't know that they had their own trauma,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, you're just mean and angry and surly, and
Right.
not loving, don't care about us. When no, he's dying inside, but he just can't talk about it because again, trauma doesn't allow you to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Because if I tell you about it, I'm going to relive it, and I don't want to do it. I might have
Mhm.
nightmares tonight, right? Or I might be, super irritable the next day, and I don't want to continue this cycle. So yeah, it definitely makes it difficult for you to live a full life when you're in the survival mode. Plus, I mean, a cortisol is gonna get, it's gonna go up, gonna cause weight gain. You're gonna be stressed out and can't sleep, you're restless. I mean, these symptoms really just bounce off each other, and it makes it really hard to have a full life. Then you think, oh well, I make a lot of money, or I go on vacation, not assaulted, or there's alcohol, there's drink, or I'm gonna go to Stamps and get me, a burger, what I'm saying, and fill my belly. Oh, that's gonna make me
Right.
feel better. No, you can't deal with these until you confront it. That all the trauma treatments that I'm skilled in, they all have the same foundation. You are confronting the trauma. That's the
Yeah.
only way that you can actually deal with it. And
Mhm.
until we have to make it comfortable to confront these difficult topics.
And
Uh, um, man, listen, we a couple of more points, questions. Ladanya said, shout out to Ladanya, one of the teachers, educators here in New Orleans. One of my girlfriends, dope being dope light. She said, first she said having doctors that can relate to us is major because growing up we didn't see this. We didn't see, many black doctors in the field of mental health. And then if we did, it was probably one out of every, blue. And how you became a doctor? I know, questions that we were asked, right? But she said, how do you encourage the young adults in your home that therapy is okay? Because I know that we are parents and some of us have younger babies, and like myself, I have adults that are kids, right? So how do you encourage the young adults? And I'm gonna start with Dr. Gigi, then go over to Dr. Fred, and we'll move around and we'll get ready to wrap it up.
Thank you. I'll just say we talk about normalizing the conversation. I'm also an advocate of us going with them, because we can't tell them to go to therapy and they don't see us doing it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even for adults, sometimes I encourage them to blame it on yourself. If you want to get somebody into therapy, ask them to go with you.
Mhm.
Right? Ask them to come in with you, especially if you're talking about a couple, take the blame. Hey, I want to work on some things, but I want you here with me. Right? Because if you're willing to have that conversation, for you to just say, you need to do this, and they don't see you participating or being an advocate of actually getting it yourself, then it's just words. So, and I just want to go back to the survival thing right quick, if I could. I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. Well, actually, it's white and primarily Indian. And I'm a little envious because culturally, the Indians, they walk after dinner in the evenings and late at night, they get to walk in the neighborhoods. And I love their cavalier stroll. You know what I mean? They're really comfortable in this is their culture and it's what they do. But my son cannot walk in this neighborhood at night where I live, where we're supposed to be safe. So you want to talk about survival mode,
Yeah.
right? Here it is. I have a young adult, 20-year-old, and I'm calling sometimes like yeah, it's only 10:30, but I need you to be home because you can't be on that road this late at night, right? And what happens to that, we have our left brain, our right brain. One is our logical side, the other is our emotional side. In the middle of that is our amygdala. And what's happening for us, we're so hypersensitive that it's called the amygdala hijack. We are getting hijacked like this on a regular basis because we're so in survival mode. So when you hear somebody snapping at you, just when you just ask for a pencil, it's not that, it's this, we're in survival
Yep.
mode all the time, and now we're automatically being put in fight, flight, or freeze. So we
Yep.
have
Yep.
some work to do to educate people to help them normalize, get to a place where they're back in balance again.
Oh man.
So,
Oh man.
Wow, wow. Go ahead, Dr. Fred. Wow. You're on mute. Let me take you off your mute. There you go, Dr. Fred.
I would also say doing the best you can to encourage those young adults to see somebody that looks like them. That's important. I have, of course, I see all races. But what I've noticed about the African Americans that come to me, the first thing that they say in the first session is, I've been waiting 2-3 months to get in to see you because I feel like you will understand what I'm going through. I feel like you will create a safe space for me to talk about all these things that are going on, whether it's inside of me or inside of my relationships. And you won't judge me for feeling the way I feel or thinking the way I think or doing the things that I do. Because see, us, especially in our culture, we have a healthy paranoia of the majority culture because of things that have happened, not just to us, but to our ancestors. And so we have to encourage our people to, as much as they can, if you're going to see a therapist, and I'm not knocking other ethnicities, but to go to somebody that looks like you, because clients tell me all the time, I came to you, I felt like you could understand my plight. I feel like I don't have to give you this lengthy discussion. I'm sorry, this lengthy explanation about my experiences for you to get it,
yeah.
to understand. And when they come in, immediately, when they start talking, I'm already able to relate and already able to. I had a man that come in to my office maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, African American male, and he said, Dr. Smith, it took me forever to even consider going to therapy. He said, I'm a Christian man, and you know what? In my house, when I even growing up as a child, and I stopped him, I said, hold it. Therapy was frowned upon in our household. You go to church, you get you some Jesus. And he said that is exactly what was taught from an early age. Or, I'm a man, you got to be strong. You don't need therapy. You don't need any of that. You should be able to solve whatever your problems are on your own. And if you can't do that, then you're not being a real man. Those are the things that he was taught. And those type of things are taught to all of us, especially in our culture. And so just to kind of chime in, encouraging young adults to see people that look like them. But then, of course, we have to have people that look like us that are willing to go into the profession.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Devin, Dr. Riggins.
Yeah.
Whoever want to jump in.
I think you set the tone by modeling, your child. You make it normal to, again, communicate your emotions. What does that mean? Do you know what these emotions mean? Is it okay for me to talk to you? Not letting your child be afraid of you to the point where they can't go to you. There's healthy fear, then there's the abusive fear, right? So you want your child to have a healthy fear of you so they can talk to you, because what you're doing is just setting the basis for a therapy session, if they need so as they get older. You give them, tools. If you've been in therapy before, if you have learned some things on your journey in your life that you can kind of, bring to your kid versus just, teaching them how to, run routes or, dress a certain way or, I don't know, just the things that, we commonly see that, may or may not be so helpful when they get older. But the common things that will live through until you are no longer on this earth are good ways to help them get comfortable with even just expressing yourself, especially our boys, expressing their emotions, teach them not to hold it in, not seeking drugs or alcohol to try to, deal with whatever they're going through or lashing out. Teaching them what manhood means. One thing, you gotta have a man in the house to even teach them what a man is. I'll be honest with you, and you need that. And so there's just a lot of that. Someone asked a question about what do we do as for a community. A community trauma involves community solutions. It means there's multiple things that have to come in place. We have to have the church involved, like wherever Black people are, then mental health needs to be there in order to reach the people. So if it's in the schools, in the church, if it's in sporting events, if it's wherever, and social media has done a really good job of putting it out there. It's borderline trendy, but I don't care. I remember a time when I started that you didn't talk about mental health, like Fred said. This wasn't something that you brought up. You looked at as weak. I mean, I'm telling you, like I've had so many military veterans. You're the very first person I ever told this to, and that trauma was like 20 plus years ago. I had a 75-year-old Vietnam vet. Never dealt with his trauma. Never even told his mom what happened. We were like maybe 10 sessions in of prolonged exposure, and he finally his mom was still living, and so he eventually told his mom what happened out there, and that was a big relief for him.
Yeah.
So we just have to make it comfortable for our people to, one, it's okay to express your emotions and not be looked at as a punk or weak, but having people that look like us, talk like us, have as close of a lived experience as possible so that you have the access. Now, there's a financial thing there too that folks don't talk about. Mental health does cost. And if you don't have insurance, then, private pay. And then, so how do you negotiate that? And then it goes into education, goes into what kind of job do you have? Do you have the funds and the ability? Do you have a job that gives you insurance that will allow you to get access to that? So those are just, more things to talk about maybe on another day. But I do agree with what Gigi said about, just, creating a safe space.
Yeah. I would also say, not being your child's worst enemy, right? Being, listen to them and understand, take some critical listening, when they tell you certain things, I would say, when I was younger, I tried to verbalize my depression and anger. And I wasn't listened to until it was almost too late. Even, to this day, I remember telling my dad, and we had a conversation about this. I told him, you messed my head up, as a child. I had to lay it on him thick. Of course, the initial reaction was denial, but I think what parent wants to hear that you really messed your child's head up and you really push them to the brink of self-destruction at times. And so I think a lot of times with parents, you can be so in your ways and your rigidness a lot of times that you're not hearing your child when they tell you, because because that's how your parents used to do it, right? And we kind of got this thing of just walk it off. Y'all remember that Chris Rock special when he was saying You know, he was joking, but he was talking about like how sexual assault is, and then the parent be like, "Now get on up out that room and go walk it off." You know, go walk it off. You know, I mean, things that we laugh at, but he was right. You know, and it just changes you, and it, you know, just beyond just the, you know, the mental. I think the physical. You know, kind of what you were talking about earlier, Dr. Riggins, about the physiological changes that, you know, that your child will go through, and, you know, and how all of that delayed response to their really impacts them. Kind of to sum up overall what, you know, what we kind of talked about and discussed earlier. Because you might think you're listening, but you probably ain't hearing them, what they're saying, you know. So I say that to any parent that's really struggling like that.
Can I just quickly piggyback off of what Devin is saying? What I've found is that we try to check in on our children, right? How you doing? Everything going okay? How was your day? And what happens is they don't come to, they need you when you are not ready to talk to them, right? You're on the phone, you're working. So it's really important that when they come to you, and it's at the most inopportune time, but you have to drop everything, because that's when they need you.
Yep. Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's really funny, and I know we're heading to a close. I'll be short, but it's funny. Ever since I got into ministry, everything's a Bible verse now. But but the Bible speaks about, right. But to that point, Devin, the Bible speaks about, always talking about where you spare the rod to save the child, right? But then they always forget about the part where you're not supposed to push your child to wrath. Like, that's the part that everybody never talks about. Okay, so this is a very close thing for me. So I have two children. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 2-year-old. I was clinically diagnosed with bipolar depression and anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and I was about 18. Started having panic attacks daily for months before I got medicated correctly. I went through pure hell on earth. Like, my flesh was exhausted from the amount of pain and trauma and stuff that was trying to come its way out. So my daughter, like, this is one of my greatest fears. My daughter's 9. And she's starting to think, you know, the food, of course, but she's starting to come into emotions that she's never felt before. Yeah. And it is a scary place for me, because my fear is for her to feel the hell that I went through. And so this is very personal to me, because me and my wife, one of our main goals was to, like y'all said it perfectly, is that safe space. Like, we don't even speak about therapy as a profession here. Like, it's not like, do you want to go talk to someone? She doesn't know what a therapist is per se, but it's like, if you need to get something off that you can't tell me or your mom because you feel like it's a little too much, too close to the vest, whatever, there's somebody who, if you want to go kick it with, we can have a conversation where you can let them talk, because it allows them to, because I think what we were taught was just that stigma, where it was like, if you went to see help, you were crazy. And so it was like, now if you go get help, you're crazy. It's like, no, it's the dead opposite of that. I feel like I have an incoming guest here. I'm on a call.
Hey, it's
my daughter. Right to say, it's 11 here, so she's getting ready for bed. But it became a thing where, tell everybody hi.
Hi.
She's like, Daddy, I need you to come on.
Mommy said he wants a diaper.
Okay. my 2-year-old is ready to go to bed. But so, but what it is I just remember the place where I was. Yeah. When I would have given anything for my father to truly understand what I was trying to say. Because the hardest part for me is I was adopted. So I was a person pleaser. Like, I chased after my father's approval for my whole life. And he loved me to the core. He kept me, and he always told me he loved me, but it was just that approval was always missing, that final piece. It created the worst imposter syndrome ever in my adult life. But for my daughter, that's one thing that I knew that I would take and let die with me. That whatever you need to say, we will process it. We will work through it. We will figure it out. But tell me, because I don't care what it is. I refuse to let you hold pain inside when I'm sitting here able to listen and help with it. Yeah. And if I can't help it, we're going to find you somebody who can help it. So I think that's just it has to not be an option. I think that that's the thing that has to die, is that mental health is an option to Black. No, mental health is a necessity. We are the children of trauma. Like, we are the children of trauma. We are the third, fourth, fifth generations of trauma removed. Let it die with us. Let us create a safe space, and let it be something that is not optional. We have to fix this now, period.
Look, I listen. We're doing this again in August, September. I mean, one of those months. I'm saying it now because I know my PR team is on here as well. We can call it back to school mental health tips. So however we're gonna, get it, but we need to make sure that this is happening. The second thing, Dr. Gigi Chuck just put her link for her book, My Comfort Tree Journey. Elder, bishop, pastor, hallelujah. You talked about your daughter, and you were saying about her going through the changes of her emotions and being able to express it. This book is not only a book that you can read for your children, but it's something that we all can relate to, especially that inner 7-year-old that is still probably yearning for some kind of communication or connection. Right. So please make sure you guys get that book. It took probably Amazon. I ordered it on like a Monday. I got it like Tuesday. So it's a great, easy reader, but it's very, very thought-provoking, and it's great for your families. Tonight has been beyond words. I've held my emotions so much, and I'm gonna continue to hold them because I've had chills and everything through my body because the way I felt before we got on here, Dr. Fred and I talked, Chuck, Mac, tonight was so purposeful. It was for everyone that was in the comment section, whether you answered the question, you didn't answer the question, ask the question, but just that you got something that you needed. We're doing this every Tuesday, but we dive in on the third Tuesday to talk about the mental health. But even if y'all want to just check in every Tuesday night, one of y'all want to come in, all of y'all want to come in, the mind is important, and we got to make sure we are providing resources for our families, for our communities, and for us as a whole, because this was therapy for me. I have my thesis of notes that I've written down. We appreciate you all for your time. Thank you so much, Sherry. Sherry said tonight's podcast was phenomenal. Thank you for everyone that was in our comment section. Tune in next week. We're going to finish up this fitness, talking about health, fitness, physical fitness. So if y'all want to come back in next Tuesday, have your outfits on because we're going to be working out. But we're gonna get this weight loss for Tonya down, and we're gonna continue to do great things for the mind. Mental health is mental wealth, and happy mind. Yeah, that's all we need. So before we go, can you all let us know your social media handles? So if anybody want to follow you on social media, how can they get in touch with you? Just let us know really quick. Whoever want to go first.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, the amazing _11 line number. So anybody can add me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram.
Okay, I'm on the gram as well. So, trying to sound cool. That's what my son would say. At Dr. Gigi Hamilton.
You can find me on Instagram at dr.reginald.riggins.
Okay.
I'm about to say, I am, if anyone wants to come hop into the DMs and ask questions, I am at, it's Know Thyself. It's KNW_THY_SLF. So Know Thyself without the vowels and 2 underscores.
Okay. Dr. Riggins, what was yours again, really quick?
Just at dr.reginald.riggins. So at dr.reginald.riggins.
And Devin, you said the amazing
_11.
Okay, Dr. Fred, you want to give yours?
Yeah. So my Instagram, FAS8EF. That's my Instagram handle. And I just want to take just a few moments because, of course, I can't leave this out. We're all D9 clinicians here, so I got to acknowledge everybody. In the organization, we have Abdul Walker, member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. Dr. Reginald K. Riggins, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. We have Devin Whitepeck, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And then, of course, myself, the best, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
And Dr. Gigi is me, fi me, me, fi me. So y'all know I got to get a picture. Go ahead on and throw it up. Let me get this picture right quick. Everyone in the pic, throw it up. 1, 2. Wait, I'm trying to get myself in there without getting myself. 1, 2, 3. I got it. Yeah. Wait, I didn't get it. I didn't. I'm sorry. Throw it up one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you so much. Again, we thank you all. Make sure you guys can see the streaming tagline going across the bottom. For we want to make sure that you dial 988 for suicide prevention and the crisis lifeline. Text HOME to 741-741 to connect with the volunteer crisis counselor. Free 24/7 support at your fingertips. So please make sure you guys. We love y'all. Shout out to my soror in the group. Shout out to my frats and all of my family, my D9 family. We love you guys. Thank you again for tuning into Nightcap Knowledge. And be here next week, guys. Y'all come on, get this physical fitness in. Chuck, where we about to go?
Man.
D9 family, where we about to go? Mental health specialist, where we about to go, y'all? Let's go.
We're going to get to where the money resides, baby. Come on. Every Tuesday, each and every Tuesday, 9 p.m. We appreciate all of our mental health professionals, clinicians, our advisors, our parents, our brothers, our sisters for being here with us, man. This has been a truly transformational evening and moment for Nightcap Knowledge. Shout out to Mac. Mac had to get to the house. Shout out to all of our survivors out there experiencing weather. Y'all make sure y'all tune in each and every Tuesday for Nightcap Knowledge.
Nightcap Knowledge, Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Central.